The Broken Promise of Entrepreneurship: Why Black Professionals Face Invisible Barriers to Being Their Own Boss. Thank you all for being here today. I'm thrilled to share insights from my recent conversation with Iman Rimawi Doster, a visionary whose work is fundamentally reshaping how we understand entrepreneurship for Black professionals. Iman isn't just a researcher or advocate, she's a revolutionary force dismantling systemic barriers that have silently derailed countless dreams. Her groundbreaking initiatives have created pathways where none existed before, making her one of the most important voices in economic justice today. Be your own boss. Create your own table instead of asking for a seat. Entrepreneurship is the ultimate escape. These are the promises we've all heard. The gospel of entrepreneurship preached to those marginalized in traditional workplaces, the supposed answer to workplace discrimination, glass ceilings, and toxic corporate cultures. But what if I told you that for many Black professionals, entrepreneurship isn't the simple solution it's often portrayed to be? What if the journey to being your own boss comes with its own set of invisible barriers that nobody talks about? This is a counterintuitive truth that emerged from my conversation with Iman, and it's a perspective that challenges everything we think we know about entrepreneurship as a path to freedom. According to a 2024 LinkedIn study that Eamon shared with me, 77% of Black professionals aspire to start their own business within the next year. That's more than 3/4 of Black professionals dreaming of entrepreneurship. Yet 63% of those same professionals feel unsure about how to get started. Think about that gap for a moment. Between desire and execution lies a chasm of uncertainty. We've been sold this narrative that entrepreneurship is the great equalizer, that in a world where corporate America continues to struggle with diversity and inclusion, striking out on your own is the ultimate solution. Create your own opportunities, write your own rules, build your own wealth. But here's what we don't talk about enough: the systemic barriers don't disappear when you leave corporate life, they simply change form. The lack of representation, the absence of mentorship, limited access to capital, the perceived risk that feels exponentially higher when you don't have generational wealth to fall back on. These barriers are real, they're significant, and they're often invisible to those who don't face them. This isn't about discouraging entrepreneurship. Far from it, it's about acknowledging the full reality so we can address it. Because when we pretend these barriers don't exist, we place the burden of overcoming them entirely on the individual. Just work harder, just be more confident, just take the leap. But just isn't enough when the playing field isn't level to begin with. Let me share some stories that illuminate these hidden challenges and the innovative solutions emerging to address them. The Freelancers Union recently highlighted stories from Black freelancers navigating transitions out of toxic corporate environments into self employment. What they found was revealing. Many of these professionals reported feeling isolated due to a lack of visible role models who looked like them. They worried about job security, a concern made more acute by family obligations and limited financial safety nets. One freelancer described being the only one on teams throughout her corporate career, only to find herself equally isolated in freelance circles. Another spoke of the double burden of managing client expectations while also educating those same clients about cultural competence. The solution? The union created targeted networking events featuring successful Black freelancers sharing their journeys. They launched peer mentoring groups specifically for underrepresented communities. The results were transformative. Members reported increased confidence after seeing relatable examples succeed. Peer support led to collaborative projects. Several mentees launched full time businesses within 6 months, and some became mentors themselves within 2 years. This initiative inspired similar affinity based freelancer networks nationwide, creating a ripple effect of support and visibility. But individual mentorship alone isn't enough. We need structural solutions too. In Charlotte, a $3.7 million innovation center was established specifically designed as a hub for Black owned businesses. This wasn't just another co working space, it was a deliberate investment in addressing the unique challenges facing Black entrepreneurs. Local founders have faced limited access to affordable workspace, culturally relevant business training, networking opportunities with investors who understood their context and visibility within mainstream markets. The center provided co working space at reduced rates, workshops on scaling businesses sustainably, and regular pitch nights attended by culturally competent investors. Over its first year, dozens of startups secured seed funding through connections made at the hub. Several expanded operations regionally thanks to shared resources offered on site. This wasn't just about launching businesses, it was about creating an ecosystem where Black entrepreneurship could thrive. The center helped launch more than 50 new ventures led by local founders within 2 years, several of which received regional innovation awards. The impact extended beyond Charlotte, setting an example replicated by other cities seeking equitable economic development strategies targeting historically marginalized communities. But even with mentorship and infrastructure, another critical barrier remains: financial literacy. MoneyTalkWith.com documented efforts around boosting financial literacy as a key leverage point for greater entrepreneurship among young Black professionals. Many aspiring entrepreneurs lacked foundational knowledge around credit management, which directly impacted their ability and confidence when applying for startup loans or pitching to investors. The solution? Community led workshops that demystified personal finance topics using culturally relevant examples. Partnerships formed with local banks, offering low barrier microloans to workshop graduates. Attendees reported higher loan approval rates compared with peers not participating in such programs. Several returned later as guest speakers after successfully launching small enterprises. What made this initiative particularly powerful was its recognition of the root causes. Organizers noticed that generational wealth gaps drove hesitance toward risk taking, even when strong ideas were present, and sought holistic education rather than one off seminars. Program graduates collectively raised over $500,000 across multiple cohorts without predatory lending involvement. The initiative helped shift community attitudes toward embracing entrepreneurship while reinforcing the importance of collective upliftment through shared knowledge transfer. These stories reveal something profound. The barriers to Black entrepreneurship aren't just about individual preparation or determination, they're systemic, and they require systemic solutions. This brings me to three key insights from my conversation with Iman that I believe can transform how we approach entrepreneurship for Black professionals. First, there is tremendous entrepreneurial ambition among Black professionals, yet a significant knowledge and resource gap persists between desire and execution. We need to acknowledge this gap and address it directly. Second, systemic barriers don't disappear when leaving corporate life, they simply change form. Lack of mentorship, representation, and access to capital remain persistent obstacles. The solution isn't just to encourage more entrepreneurship, it's to dismantle these barriers. Third, building community driven resources like financial literacy programs and business hubs is crucial for breaking down these unique barriers and enabling sustainable success. Individual effort matters, but community infrastructure matters more. So, where do we go from here? I believe we stand at a critical crossroads. We can continue to promote entrepreneurship as an individual solution to systemic problems, or we can recognize that true economic liberation requires collective action. The question isn't whether Black professionals should pursue entrepreneurship. The question is, how do we transform entrepreneurship itself so it becomes a genuine path to freedom rather than another system that reproduces inequality? This means rethinking our entire approach. It means creating ecosystems of support rather than celebrating lone success stories. It means acknowledging that behind every overnight success is a community that made it possible. Today, I challenge you to see entrepreneurship not as an individual journey, but as a collective responsibility. If you're an investor, how are you addressing the funding gap that sees less than 1% of venture capital going to Black founders? If you're a successful entrepreneur, how are you creating pathways for others? If you're considering entrepreneurship yourself, how are you connecting with communities that can support your journey? The broken promise of entrepreneurship can be repaired, but only if we're honest about what's broken in the first place. As Emin Rimawi Doster so powerfully articulated, entrepreneurship for Black professionals isn't just about individual success. It's about collective liberation. It's about creating new systems that work for us, rather than struggling to fit into systems that weren't designed with us in mind. So I ask you, how will you actively seek out or become the mentor or resource you wish you'd had at the start? What step will you take this week toward building not just your own venture, but also creating pathways for others coming behind you? Because the truth is, entrepreneurship alone won't save us, but entrepreneurship reimagined, rebuilt, and reclaimed just might. Thank you